You can create custom forms. That way, in your campaigns, be it a viral sweepstakes or a photo contest, any type of campaign, you can create custom fields in your submission forms to gather information from people who are entering your campaigns. Things like, are you planning on purchasing in the near future? Just more information that's going to help your sales team and your marketing automation have the data it needs to treat each individual who enters your database in a personalized manner. To do this, you're going to go to the submission form section of the settings step of your campaign. And instead of choosing the default, you are going to click edit. You could also have clicked the new, but I like to use edit. That way, at least the default fields are already included and it makes it easier. Generally speaking, most custom forms will have at least an email. That's a required field. First name is not required, but generally speaking, you will have at least a first name, and last name is optional, depending on if you're going to use custom marketing automation for every single thing. Every touch point will be digital. You might not need the last name, but just to show you how to start adding additional fields, everything is drag and drop. So what I can do now, if I want to add address information, I can just add address. Line 2. So as you can see, wherever you drag it, that's where it's going to insert this new field. And all of these preset fields on the left are already in your database. You don't even need to create a new database field. These are just default fields that are available to you anytime you want to customize one of your forms. I'm going to add zip code because we're in the United States here, and you've got the state that they can select as well. All of the US states are included. So now that I've added address, I can consider doing things like adding the phone number, which I think is important. Okay, so now that we've added some pretty common fields, let's create a custom field. On the left side, these are custom field types that you can add to your custom form. A couple of really unique things that you could do here. You could actually add a section heading. So what if I wanted to say, this is the address section? I can say address info. Notice that there's always an edit link next to these headers and a lot of the other elements in the form. And when you click that, you just get some additional options. Like I can change the font size. And when I preview this form, it'll show as 12. You can also change the font family and even go bold with the subheadings. You can also add normal text input fields. And what a text input field is like a zip code, for example. So if I want to add a text input field for mobile, if I want to add a separate mobile and a separate, landline phone, I just need to type in the text here. That is what the label of the field will be. And this indicates what the field will look like. I can make it a required field or not required. If I change my mind and I want to move this field up, I can simply drag it using the drag element. If I decide that phone is a little bit redundant, I can either delete the phone field here, but what I recommend you do if your company doesn't maintain two separate phone number types is I would delete the new one that you just created and change the name of the existing one. The reason I recommend doing that whenever possible is if I drag over a new one, it's going to create a new field in the database. And now every time I do an export of my campaign entries, there's going to be a new column in the database. So why not keep things neat and tidy and just change the name from phone to mobile? It's as simple as that. Now the same column in your CSV, your spreadsheet exports, will just have a mobile heading instead of saying phone. Text area is the same thing, except there are multiple rows of data. You get a giant text box where people could enter a longer piece of information. For example, how did you hear about us? You might want to give people a lot of room to answer that. Or how do you plan to use our products? Tell us about your project. Those types of questions really need a text area box to give them plenty of room. Multi-select. So when I drag this over, look at the options I get. So I can hide the field name. and just use the labels of the individual options. I can have it unchecked by default. So here is how these multi-select works. This is going to give them checkboxes, as many as you like. You can even add options here. So each one of these will be a checkbox. So for example, let's say instead of untitled, I'm going to change this to, when do you plan to make a purchase decision on this project? I can have an option as within a month, 2 to 3 months, no intention of purchasing. And because it's a required field, one of these three options will have to be selected. So this is a great way of getting information from people. Let's see here. I'm going to move on to the checkbox. What a checkbox is, it's the same thing, but it's a single checkbox. So I would use this for things like yes or no questions, or, like, yes, I would like to be approached by a salesperson with more information on this offer, that type of a thing. Radio buttons are the same thing as checkboxes, and the options are the same. The difference is this is going to show up as radio buttons instead of checkboxes. So they will only be able to select one of the field of options. I would choose radio buttons for this particular option because you can't really have two. You can't be both ready to purchase within a month and have it to be 2 or 3 months. So I would have chosen radio box for this particular question. Dropdown is also the same thing, except the field of options is going to be delivered in a drop-down format. The date selection is going to allow them to use a calendar utility to select a date, and that is really good for things like, when would you like us to contact you about this offer? A star rating allows people to actually click a 1 through 5 star rating to rate their experience. A section heading we've already been through, and you can even show a page break. So for example, after they enter their address, you can drag a page break here, and I'll show you in the preview, it will actually break this out into a 2-page form. So once they reach the end of their address, they're going to have to click a button to continue to the next section. You can also add hidden fields, and what's nice about hidden fields, I'll drag one up here to the first step. Nobody will see these, and what I'm going to say here is hidden 1. This allows you to capture a value in your custom form that was passed by a parameter in a link from where they came from. So this is rather advanced, and there are separate tutorials for how to pass information using a parameter into your campaigns using parameters in links. So you could have, let's say there were 2 different sources of traffic to your campaign. One was from paid ads, one was from organic social. What you could do is have them pass along the source of that data. In that case here, you would say source, or even traffic source to be really clear. Now it will store that in a data field, so you can go on later when you export this data and do your analysis on where the traffic came from. The CAPTCHA field I do not recommend. This adds an additional CAPTCHA element if you're getting a lot of automated spam submissions, but we already add a very advanced CAPTCHA to all of our form fields, so this secondary CAPTCHA field is generally unnecessary. When you're done with this, be sure to create a form name, because this is a custom form. I'm going to say with address, because that is what makes this a distinct form from the default. I can even set this as the default form for future campaigns, and I can preview it before I save it. Now you can see we've got that bold address information here, and notice there's a next field to see the remaining information. These are required fields, so it's not going to let me go past until I do that. So this looks good to me, so I'm going to exit the preview and save this form. Now I'll be able to select this in future campaigns by choosing from the dropdown with address instead of the default form.